Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live session of GETI Talks. My name is Shilpi. I'm the relationship manager with the Global Education and Training Institute. Well, do I begin telling you a story about a girl who's known as Teacher Aliya? It's a small novel, short novel, as she herself calls it. But yes, it's very interesting. So I will go ahead with it. Her name is Aliya Nasim. She is right now in New Zealand. She is an IELTS and ESL trainer from New Zealand, and she is been into teaching right from 2004. And she did not know that it would be so rewarding and satisfying. She loves language teaching because it gives her the freedom to take learning away from whiteboards and textbooks. I agree with you. As an English teacher, we can get into rhymes and poems and stories and prose. So yes, and there are like interesting projects that you take up. She holds an MA degree in English language teaching. She has also done her CELTA from the University of Cambridge. She has worked with prestigious universities like the University of Auckland in New Zealand and language centers and aspires to international. She also recently visited IIM Kashipur in India as a teacher training resource program. So she has also been associated with Massey University and Mount Roskill Grammar School Community Education in New Zealand. So you have worked with refugees, you have
Yes,
worked with migrants, you have worked with professionals, and you also work with housewives, right? So I
yes.
think that's an interesting combination in your career. So Alia, thank you so much for joining in the disruptive education movement started by Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And I believe your topic is very much relevant to your career because you teach various variety of people. So it's very important for you even to assess those people, isn't that? I mean, not just for them to know where they are, but also for yourself. It helps you, I believe, that to know if there are any improvements or any kind of modifications needed in the methodologies. So Alia, I give this platform to you. Please go ahead. And her topic for today is how can you do assessments in the classroom, the various ways you can do assessments in the classroom. So here I go, and the platform is all yours.
Thank you, Shilpi. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's a great privilege to be able to talk to teachers online from around the world through this platform that Getty has given me. And I really thank Ms. Sunita Gandhi and all of you who have been behind this. This topic, which is how to check for understanding students' understanding, is very close to my heart. I'll tell you why this is so close to my heart. Because until I did my CELTA course from the Cambridge University, which is a certificate course in English language teaching to adults, I had no clue. Like I had no clue about what checking for understanding or concept checking is, like the concept checking in particular. And when I got to know and how important it is, it changed me as a teacher completely. And that day, I realized that every teacher should know what is concept checking and how should we do it. What are the effective ways of checking if the student has really understood the concept or not? Because as teachers, we spend a lot of time preparing for lessons, spending sleepless nights preparing for lessons, and trying to make sure that the students get it. We make posters, we try to do everything possible. We try the whiteboard, we do quizzes, uh, we bring realia to the class. We try everything to make sure that our students understand what we're teaching. But it is very important for us to know whether they have really understood it or not. And most teachers try and figure out if their students have understood or not. And some get the real feel of the student understanding, and some don't. So I decided to pick this topic and enlighten some of the teachers who were like who are like me when I was like teaching English without doing CELTA. So I will, without wasting much time, I will take you through the topic and explain what is concept checking, how we should do it, what is an effective way, what doesn't work, what works, and when and where you should be doing it. So I'll begin with it now. I'm just trying to bring up my PPT on the screen. Please bear with me.
Your PPT is not on the screen.
Oh, is it not? Okay.
Your PPT is already there. You just need to start operating and speaking.
All right. Okay. So, Shilpi, can you see that?
Yes, yes, it's absolutely okay.
All right. Thank you. So, how to check for understanding in virtual classrooms. It is very important to check for understanding, no matter what type of class it is, whether it is face to face, virtual, hybrid. Checking for understanding is really vital. But we'll be emphasizing on checking for understanding in virtual classes because most of the schools are either virtual or hybrid at the moment, and it's it's really vital to understand why and how we should be doing it. So, first of all, I would like to tell you what are checks for understanding. So, basically, CFUs, checks for understanding is CFUs as we uh, call it. This allows the teacher to better understand where the students are in the learning process. And it also helps the student to understand if they have understood what the teacher is teaching. So it works both ways. And this has never been more crucial than it is now in the virtual world of education. This is because the students are on the other side. The teacher is not physically there with the students. The teacher cannot shoulder check or go around in the class and monitor what the students are doing, because monitoring in the class is a very important part of teaching, but that is what the teachers cannot do in in a virtual classroom. So checking for understanding becomes even more tricky and crucial when the teachers cannot physically be there and monitor what the students are writing or noting down and how they are doing the activity. So I told you what checking for understanding is, but now I will tell you what it is not. It is not the final exam. So when I say it is not the final exam, that means it is not done at the end of the course. It is not done to know uh, how much or what, whether the student has mastery over a particular subject or not. How much does the student score? Okay, it is not the summative exams. Um, so when should we do it? If it is not the final exam and we don't do it at the end, so when should we do it? The CFUs are most effective. The concept checking is most effective when it is done while the lessons are still going on. So as you can see in the picture here, the teacher is discussing something and she's posed some questions to the students, and the students are all excited to answer the teacher's question. So it is checking for understanding is done while the class is still going on. And this is the reason why it is called formative assessment. So how should teachers check for understanding? This is something which all teachers should know, because just knowing that they should be checking for understanding is not enough. How should they be doing it is also very important. One of the best ways, I would say, to check your students' understanding of whether they have understood what you're teaching, have understood the concept or not, is by doing a concept check. So now, that brings me to the question, what exactly is concept checking? Okay, so when they do concept checking, they basically ask questions. Okay, a set of questions. So concept checking questions are also abbreviated as CCQs. So I'll be addressing it as CCQs from here on. So this is the main method, and the teachers basically ask a set of questions to students to see whether what she's been teaching has been understood by the students or not. And that involves a lot of preparation. When I say a lot of preparation, I really mean it. So it is not this such questions which the teacher would think on the spot while the class is going on. The teacher has to do a lot of homework to prepare these questions, because the questions should be directed to check exactly what the aim of the lessons are. So whether the student really gets it or not. So if I ask teachers, what kind of questions would you ask to know if your student has understood or not? Um, then the teachers who don't know about concept checking, and those teachers who have heard this term CCQ for the first time would say, oh, I will say, do you understand? I will ask questions like, any questions? Do you get that? Everybody understands, or does that make sense? So basically, these are the common questions that the teachers ask to students, thinking that this would let them know if the students have understood or not. But basically, none of these questions work. They are not helpful at all, because such general questions are simply not sufficient to understand what the students have understood. We cannot come to the conclusion that the students have got the concept. Now, why is that? That is because some students aren't self-regulated learners. They might not even be aware whether they have understood something or not. And the other thing is, when you ask questions like, do you understand? Most of the students would easily just nod their head to save their face, because they don't want their peers to know that they haven't understood something. And questions like, have you got it? Any questions? Do you understand? Only basically target those students who are like very confident, who are good, and who pick up things quickly. So they would be the only ones who would respond to it correctly. Others would just nod their heads only to save a face. They don't want to go through the embarrassment of their classmates laughing at them and thinking that they are any less. So that is the reason why asking general questions don't solve or like doesn't have any outcome, a real outcome, I would say. So now you would be wondering, if we cannot or we should not ask those questions, what type of questions would we ask, and what kind of preparation do we need to do that? So this leads me to the next part of my talk today, as to how should the teachers prepare effective CCQs? So I'll be sharing with you some of the tips, very useful tips to create effective CCQs. So by saying effective CCQs, I mean that such questions that will give you a clear and true understanding of the students' learning, of their progress, of whether they have really actually understood or not. So the first step is the question. The questions should be easy to understand. So the questions should be framed in simple words. They should not have really high or complex vocabulary, and they should not be a very complex question. So basically, a short, simple question. My next tip is, you should avoid asking questions that can be lifted from a text directly, because something which is there on the face, any student can quickly pick that up. That doesn't give you a clear understanding of whether they have got the concept or not. So, picking up questions for answers for which can be directly lifted from the text doesn't solve the purpose. So, what exactly should you be doing? You should be picking up questions or framing questions that get the students involved in thinking and reasoning out. So, though the questions will be very simple and straightforward, they will really have to think and reason out the answer. Like they would have to analyze the situation, reason out, think, and then come to an answer for that question. And my fourth tip is you should avoid asking questions like, do you understand? Which I mentioned earlier in my talk that yes, you should not ask, do you understand? Because it leads you nowhere. It solves no purpose. It does nothing at all. It just gets you false answers from the students, and that's of no use to you as a teacher because you cannot work on the results of those questions to figure out if you should work on changing your strategies of teaching or should you give students extra practice of the new concept that you're teaching, or should you amend certain things in what you're teaching, like your instructions or whatever. So it doesn't really lead you anywhere. So please don't resort to questions like, do you understand? Because it's as good as not asking it. And my next tip is avoid open ended questions. So, questions like if you ask questions like, um, how did this happen? So, that is a question which the students will have to answer how or why or what requires a long answer, and we don't want long explanations to check concepts. We want really simple questions which would either have yes no answers or really short answers like short phrase or one or two words. Either or questions or yes no questions work particularly well when you ask me about effective ccqs. And now, I would show you some example, an example of a good CCQ, a set of good CCQ questions. Okay, so before showing you the set of questions that I have for you, I would first like to explain the topic that I've picked up and the concept behind it. So I've picked up second conditional. So this is a term in the English grammar, and second conditional questions are used when the result is unlikely or impossible. And we use it to talk about imaginary situations. So I'm going to analyze whether the students have understood um, the concept, whether the students have understood the second conditional questions or not. So it sounds like a very complex topic, but it really isn't. When you look at the sentence, example sentence, you would be like, oh, now I get it. So I'll take you through, and this is a second conditional question. If I won the lottery, I'd buy a new car. So I want to understand whether or not my students know that this is an imaginary situation. And I also want to know whether or not my students know that the result for this situation is either unlikely or impossible. So I need to design questions to be able to figure out exactly that, whether the result of the situation is impossible and whether this is an imaginary situation. So my questions will only be targeting these two options. So I will show you the questions now and I'll explain it as well. So if I won the lottery, I'd buy a new car. And once I have introduced the grammar point and I've explained it to the students, I will, in the process of teaching, I will ask them, I'll put this example on and I'll ask them, have I won the lottery? And if the students have really understood, they would say no. Okay, they would outright say no. If they haven't, then they might say yes. So while I'm asking these questions and getting answers from the students, I'm really acting like a doctor, trying to figure out uh, what exactly the problem is, where the problem lies, what are the symptoms, and how should I go about curing it. So, have I won the lottery? If the students have got the concept, they will all shout out no. And if it is a virtual classroom, you can ask them to put show a thumbs up or thumbs down. So, thumbs up means yes, thumbs no means down. And my second question that I have put on here is, am I going to win the lottery? If the students have really understood the concept of um, second conditional, they would say probably not, because am I going to win the lottery? So I'm targeting at the result. What will be the result if I win the lottery? So it is impossible or highly unlikely. So the students will say no, or they will say probably not. If they do that, I'll be like, yes, they have understood it. If they say yeah, you will, then I'll be like, oh, I think they haven't got the concept that it is not going to happen, or it is completely impossible. Now, the next question is, have I got the ticket? And the students would say maybe. And my last question is this real or imaginary? So the students would outright say imaginary. They will all shout out imaginary, and I'll, like, in my heart, do a happy dance, thinking, oh wow, the students have got the concept. But if they say this is real, that means they have not understood the concept. They don't know that the situation is unreal. It is an imaginary situation. It might not happen. So then, if I don't get the desired answers through these CCQs, then I will know, okay, I need to explain this in a better way with more examples. I need to give my students more practice, or maybe I need to rethink my strategy for teaching second conditional sentences, like a grammar point like this. So it is very important to do some homework when you think of your CCQs. You need to be very mindful of what are you going to achieve out of it. So as you can see, all these questions are not just asked for the sake of asking. They all have a purpose, and they're all very close-ended. They don't call for long explanations or descriptions or answers. They are either one word or probably a phrase answer. Now, that was an example of an ideal set of CCQ questions. You can ask as many number of CCQs as you want and as less as you want. Depends on what you're checking and how many questions would lead to have a proper understanding of whether the students have got the concept or not. So that is an ideal set of good CCQs. Now I'll show you some poor CCQs. For the same question, for the same sentence, if I won the lottery, I'd buy a new car. If my CCQs are something like this, what will I do with the lottery money? Does it lead to anything? What will I do with the lottery money? Yes, the students might say, they might all say, you'll buy a car. But does that give me an understanding whether the students know that this might happen or it is highly unlikely to happen? No. The next question that I've put, which is a poor CCQ again, when did I buy the lottery ticket? Does it even matter when did I buy the lottery ticket? It doesn't, because all what I want to know and all what I want my students to understand is that this sentence is an imaginary situation, and the result, which is buying a car, is almost next to impossible. All that is all what I want my students to understand, and these questions will not help me achieve that. So how much did I pay for the lottery ticket? Doesn't make any, like, it doesn't solve any purpose. It doesn't lead me anywhere. The students will say they don't know because it's not there. The next one is, have you ever won a lottery? Well, for checking concept, this is not a good question. But this is a good question when after you've checked the concepts and concept and you know your students have really understood the topic, then later you can ask this question: have you ever won a lottery? And then have the students discuss with their partners, or maybe discuss in a group, or just it could be an open class question, and then there could be a small discussion around it, which would be good. But this is not ideal. This question, have you ever won a lottery, is not ideal for checking concept. And of course, does that make sense? Is not going to lead you anywhere at all. So these are the these are the questions that are not good examples of CCQs. So I would request you to avoid such questions which doesn't solve any purpose. Now, having said that, now I will take you through some tools that you can use for your virtual classrooms to check student understanding. My favorite and the first one is Mentimeter because it allows you to use mobile phones or tablets to vote on any question the teacher asks. So the students can actually vote on any question that is posed by the teacher, and it increases student engagement. My second best or second favorite is Answer Garden. This is a tool for brainstorming or polling. Teachers can use this real-time tool to see student feedback on questions. And this is quite helpful because you can real-time see what the students are thinking or what the students have understood. The next one is Coggle. So Coggle is a mind mapping tool and it is designed to understand student thinking again. And that is what we do when we check for understanding. The next one is Edulastic. It allows teachers to create standards aligned assessments quickly, and they can get instant feedback from students, and they can adjust their teaching and see how they can make it better for the students to understand the concept or topic that's being taught. There's another one by the name Formative. This online all student response system actually gives the teachers the opportunity to assign activities to students, and they receive the results in real time, and then they can immediately provide feedback to the students. The last one is Play Pause It, an interactive tool in assessment that allows teachers to add videos, and they can also pause and ask questions in those videos. So there'll be if the teacher shows a video, while the video is being played, the teacher can pause it and pose questions and add questions, and the students can answer the questions and the video can be played back again. So this is quite interesting. And teachers choose video, they can easily choose video from YouTube or any other popular platform like Vimeo and whatever they would be using, and they can easily pause and pose questions, get answers from the students, and go back and continue playing the video. That brings me to the end of concept checking questions and how you should be checking for understanding in virtual classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Aliya, so much for bringing up this topic because as teachers, this is very important for us to, because we work hard. We put in a lot of efforts to make the lesson planning, put in, exercises and everything. But actually, what kind of questions, especially I liked it when you said don't ask open ended questions. So I'll begin with this itself. When you say don't ask open ended questions, would you like our audience to get acquainted with the type of questionings? What is the difference between a close ended and an open ended question?
Sure, that's a very good question, Shilpi. Thank you for asking that. So, closed-ended questions are those questions which lead to either one word answer, or a set number of responses are given by the teacher, and the students have to just choose from those responses. So either it is yes no question, a question which would lead to yes no answer, either or maybe the options are set by the teacher and the students have to just pick from there. That's a close-ended, where the student doesn't have to really explain or give a description, basically. That is what I mean by close-ended. Now, open-ended questions are just the opposite. They don't have any limit to how many words a student would use to answer it. They could take as long as 2 or 3 minutes to explain the answer or the concept or whatever it is, the process. So the reason why we don't like suggest asking open-ended questions, because the teacher cannot really figure out whether the students have really understood. TCQs should be like really targeted and hitting on the point rather than beating around the bush. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, yes. I would now like to ask, you know, coming to, like your career, you have been teaching all kinds of people. So I think you're the right person if I put this question to you. Is it easy to even assess toddlers? I mean, a teachers like in playgroup when they're teaching toddlers.
Mhm.
Um, is it even made, this kind of assessments, how to check their learning? Can it be done with the toddlers as well?
Oh, yes, very much. And this is a very interesting um, area, like very interesting age as well, where the toddlers are only very little and they're only being able to express themselves. They might not be as expressive. They might not have all the words to explain if they've understood or not. And asking them, have you understood, would mean nothing to them. And so I'll give you an example of how you can check a toddler's understanding or preschooler's understanding. Suppose you're teaching them shapes and you want to know if they've really understood and if they can tell one shape from another or not. So you would just pick up a picture and you'll be like, suppose it's a picture of a square, and you'll pick up the picture and say, so this is a triangle, right? And the students will be like, no. And then you'll be like, so what is it? And they'll say square, and you'll be like, yeah, they've got it. So that's how we check. So we can check student understanding at any level, any age, any ability. So almost every class can use concept check.
When after, we check the learning levels, or after, we check their learning thing. So there is also might be, kind of solutions for it when we come to know that these are the things where they're lacking. So
Mhm.
is it that improvement in the methodology of the teacher, or is it that we have to see where is the child, who is this learning assessment meant for? Is it for both of them, or is it for teacher or a student particularly?
Okay, so to answer this question in one word, I would say it is for both. So, checking for the understanding is a formative assessment which is done for both the teachers and the students. So, the teachers do it in order to understand if the students have understood the concept or not. If the students have understood the concept, the teacher can move on and introduce other new topics or language or whatever she's teaching. And if the teacher doesn't get the desired answers, that means the teacher has to stop and rethink how she can alter her teaching, or maybe how she can introduce or introduce reintroduce the topic, or maybe explain the topic that the students really get it. So maybe she'll put in more practice exercises, or maybe she'll do quizzes, or she could do a project or a pair work or group work, or an input session. There are lots of different ways to make changes to the plans. So it also helps the teacher to make like be flexible in the class. So she doesn't have to really stick to the lesson plan. If she thinks that this lesson plan is not working for this group of students, she might as well go and make changes to that, and then again do a concept check after using the new strategy and see if it works or not. If it does, bingo. If it doesn't, which generally doesn't happen, if it doesn't, then she'll have to try out other ways.
There is a question one of our viewers have just put up. As I introduced you, I told that you're teaching variety of people. So they want to know, when housewives, where you teach them, is it the same kind of lesson plan, same kind of subject matter that goes to them, and what is their purpose of learning the language? Mostly, why do they want to learn?
Okay, so housewives want to learn English, mostly because they want to be able to talk to the teachers and principal at school and be able to understand the homework or the projects or assignments that their children get from school, and to be able to assist their child better in the learning process. The other aim of housewives, or other, I would say, rather, other purpose is to be able to communicate with their children who are grown ups and are abroad, and maybe they have grandchildren who only speak English and grandparents don't know English, and they'd be like, oh, I need to learn English to be able to speak to my grandchild children. And that's how. So my mother, when I started teaching online after this pandemic happened, and she saw me teaching students in and out, and then she was like, "Well, can I join one of your classes? Will I be able to benefit from it?" And I said, "Why do you want to learn?" And she said, "Because then I'll be able to talk to your children because they don't understand Hindi." And I was like, uh, "Definitely, you should." And she did, and she's doing really well. So she started as an absolute beginner, and I can see a lot of progress in her. And uh, that has also helped her to feel more confident, and she feels that she's worth something. I don't know, but language doesn't really matter. Knowing any language doesn't make you superior or inferior, but I don't know, English comes with that tag of like feeling more confident, better, feeling that you are something and you can achieve something. So that is why those are the few reasons why housewives want to learn English.
There are two things that I gathered from this answer of yours. First is that age has no learning has no age. You can begin anytime. And the other thing is that English actually now is almost like a language of the world, and it no longer holds that kind of a tag of being a little
Yeah.
more learned than the others. I think
Mm,
it's just people have just accepted it, and it's so
mm,
simple, a language to connect with people all over the world. You don't know any language, but you know English. So I
yeah.
think it's it's just that English has been lucky that people have universally accepted it.
Right.
So, and yes, so coming to my maybe one of the second last questions is um, assessing. Like learning and assessment. Is
Mm,
it that you have to, is there a parameter, or are there different parameters on which you check, especially a language, not just English, when it comes to language, reading, writing,
mhm,
comprehension, right?
mhm.
So in Indian schools, like, we are very particular about all these things. So it might be varying on different levels, isn't that so? Like, I believe, like, when you check the playgroup children, or you check the toddlers, it is more about comprehension, it is more about catching the diction and the phonics.
Mhm.
So I read that you also, children love when you do the phonics with them. So
Oh, they rave about it. I'm telling you, they are like, when is the next class? And the class is over, and they'll be like, don't go, teacher, don't go. They're that crazy when it comes to the
I
phonics
truly
lesson.
believe that. I truly believe that because phonics, has such a lot of ways to teach, and the sounds that are made, and children love to imitate those sounds, and take it. So these, so are there different parameters on which you check for each age group? Or is it that, for diction, for comprehension, for a set of people, it is common and then it is little different for the others?
So you're talking about checking for understanding, the parameters for checking for understanding.
Yes, I mean, are there different parameters? For the, like, I'll divide it into two things. Firstly, parameters for checking these different aspects of language. Secondly, is it different for every age group? I mean, obviously, it must be. So, what kind of difference it is, between age groups? For example, if you're assessing a housewife
Mhm.
and you're assessing a professional, so there might be, definitely you must be using two different kinds of learning assessments.
Yes. So, because I'm only focusing on formative assessment as of now for this session, for the purpose of this session, so I'll talk about formative assessments. So when I compare one of my phonics classes where I've got little children, like preschoolers or those who have just started school, when I check concepts with them, I usually use more pictures and realia and diagrams, and I draw something on the board and try to check that way. And I usually go by examples, and I'm like, you pick the correct one, and like that. I do a similar kind of check for the housewives who are like beginners, like who are learning English as absolute beginners, because they might not have the kind of like the skills to be able to really tell me or ask me questions if they've understood or not. It goes same with the toddlers or really young learners. They might not be able to like interrupt and say, "Teacher, I've not understood this." So for them, for these two different groups of learners, yes, I really need to make sure that I check concept. So suppose if I'm teaching a beginner um, group of housewives and I'm teaching them present simple tense, then if I say she goes to school, I would check concept. And I check for their understanding by asking, does she go to school every day? And they will be like, yes. And then I'll put another sentence and I will say she used to go to school. And I'll be like, I will ask questions like, does she go to school now? So if they say no, that means they understand that used to is used for something, some action which was a habit or a repetitive one in the past, but now it's stopped. If they, so that is particularly how I would test. But when it comes to working professionals, my questions would be different. My examples would be different, and I would see where they are going to use the target language. And suppose if I'm teaching something which they would be using in writing emails or giving presentations, then I will only like base my questions or my examples, which will be relevant to where they will be using the language in the real life. So it depends. It differs a little bit.
Right. My last question would be, so when you get the results of these assessments, how do you share it with the students? Is it like, like in our traditional school, it says, oh, you have not done well, or you are weak at the subject, or it has the methods changed of sharing the results finally with the children?
Okay, so as I said, this is not a summative assessment, and this is not an assessment which is done after the course. It is while the teacher is teaching in the classroom. So the teacher gets responses, and if the responses are not the desired ones, the teacher would be like, "Oh, I think I would explain it in a better way," or "Let me try another example." Okay, like I as a teacher would personally not say, no, you've got it wrong. That's absolutely wrong. What were you doing in the class? I would not do that. I'll be like, if I ask it, I'll take the same example of present simple. She goes to school, and if the student says, um, like, does she go to school every day? And the student will be, no, she's going to school now. And I'll be like, oh, maybe let's take another example. And then I'll put another example. She is going to school. So how is this different from the other one? And I'll explain. Like
Yeah.
IAG, the present continuous says that she is going to school now. But when we have present simple, we use it for habits or things that usually regularly happen. And they'll be like, yeah, I get it. And then I'll ask another, like I'll do a quick concept check, and maybe I'll do a quiz or something, a different one this time. Not always verbally asking question, maybe a Kahoot quiz or some kind of quiz to check, and most likely the students would understand. So I would never tell the students that they gave me the wrong answer, or they failed me, or like I've spent so much time and this is what they have given me. I would never make them feel that. I would rather make them feel that I didn't do my job properly. I need to do it better.
Thank you so much, Alia, because I think the topic with you was such an important topic because teaching has changed with, I think from the last 20 or so decades. That, initially it was like a learner's responsibility. Like the teacher is doing her job, but if you don't learn it, it's your problem. Fine,
Mhm.
because I remember we were in school, so the same things, those cliched sentences that you said, "Don't you understand? What were you doing when I was teaching in the class?" So we were so hesitant to put up a question again because we felt it's our responsibility to understand, no matter the method or the way she is adapted in the class is not good enough for me, because every learner, it is like we know about the seven intelligences. Every learner has a way to grasp that subject. So thank you so much. And finally, if the students are learning, they'll tell the teachers next that the assessments are not meant for us but for you. So so therefore it is important that, yes, because we have to adapt to new ways, and because children are coming from different backgrounds to us now. Initially it used to happen that from the same locality, same community, children were coming to that particular school, so the teachers knew that they're coming from this place. But now,
Mhm.
international schools, boardings, everywhere, children are a variety of communities and places. So I think that
Mhm.
this is very, very important that we have to learn to assess the learning curves of the children and accordingly do it. So thank you so much, Alia, and we are looking forward to having another session with you in a few months more on another very interesting topic that you can. And I would believe that would be on phonics, how to take up diction and phonics with the children at a very play group and those levels. And I'm announcing the topic right now because of my viewers to look out for the next news on her Getty Live, that this is the topic that Alia is going to discuss with us. Thank you so much, Alia, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Shilpi. I loved being here.
You're welcome.